Welcome back to Transitions. Today we are discussing food. Our last guest, Dale, shared his experience as a young man who plays a greater role than usual in preparing foods for his family. Many of us speak about eating a more healthy diet, and many of us fall right back into the same old habits, which can be very harmful for our health. Later in the show, we will hear from the coordinator of programs and services with the Canadian Diabetes Association, Larissa Sawchuk, who will explain the transitions people may have to make once they are diagnosed. She will also give us some tips to prevent the onset of the disease. Right now, Whitney Harms, a registered dietitian with Whitney Nutrition, helps us make some positive changes in our grocery shopping habits.
So we kind of have an elaborate sort of array of items here. So you'll kind of see I've separated them into two groups. The first group being sort of pantry number one, being sort of an example of some common things that I think people will find in their pantries or in their cupboards, in their kitchen. Unfortunately, some of these items contain what I call the trifecta of nutrients that we're trying to either limit or avoid a little bit more often, those being sugar, salt, and fat. Unfortunately, all three of those things taste amazing, and they certainly have a role in our diet and in our food intake every day, but limiting them to not our first choice all the time is a good idea. And then I have an example of the second pantry being in a pantry or a cupboard or a kitchen full of items that promote health. So things that provide us lots of nutrition, that being vitamins, minerals, fiber, things like that. So you'll see a lot of similar items. For example, we see pasta in both pantries. This one being an example of a white refined starch. Things like white rice or white pasta can easily be swapped out for something like a whole grain variety.
I see.
Very similar taste, can be swapped out in just about any recipe, but provides some added nutritional benefits, which is a great idea as well. So
something I should do?
That's an easy one. That's a great place to start. And if you are kind of making that transition and you're finding, the taste or the texture is a little bit different, what you can do is go start with a white base. So start with white rice, but add a quarter cup of brown rice the first time you do it. The second time, half a cup.
That's
3/4, and slowly you make that transition very easy until you don't even notice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's really good. And what else do you have here?
So some other things I have are other types of, snack foods. We see a lot of snacks in people's kitchen because we love to snack. We're often on the go. We watch TV, things like that. So things like crackers or candy or, chips, things like that can easily be, subbed out for something like fruits or dried fruits and nuts. Something like fresh fruits or vegetables, even like a bowl of oatmeal sweetened with just a little bit of brown sugar is a great alternative to, sitting down to a bowl of chips or, a bowl of candies or things like that.
I don't see popcorn here. What about popcorn? You have any quick tips?
Popcorn is a great thing that you can make at home. As opposed to buying some of those individual microwave bowls, what you can actually do, that's one of the simplest and, not only cost saving but tastes just as great, is buy yourself a pack of brown paper bags, get some plain popcorn kernels, put them in the bag and put them in the microwave. It will pop just like a microwavable bag of popcorn, but you can add whatever seasonings and flavorings you want.
Really good. So what about size of, say, meat? I have a little guide that I stuck up on the fridge, and I think, oh my goodness, a steak is so delicious when it's like 6-8 ounces. But what's the size for
That's
meat
a really
for
good question.
A serving?
And I actually have a little bit of a visual aid I can show you as we talk more about it. So this is sort of an example that shows more what many of us are doing, so kind of where a lot of people start when I meet with them. And if you look at this as your plate and kind of your cup or a side dish, you see a lot of people fill their plate half with carbohydrate rich foods, grains and starches, so things like the pasta, the rice, things like that. Then they add a fairly large portion of meat, something like 6 or 8 ounces like you're talking about. And then very little veggies. Sometimes it's just a scoop to add some color to the plate as opposed to being the main thing that's represented on the plate.
Okay.
A little bit of dairy on the side. So that is an example of where a lot of people start. What we want to aim towards is something like this. So you see the plate is divided up in a very similar way, but instead fruits and vegetables are the star. So you fill half your plate with vegetables, fruits, things like that. A small portion is, dedicated to protein. So I specifically put protein here as opposed to meat because protein can come from sources other than meat. And in fact, the United Nations declared 2016 as the year of the pulses. So pulses being things like lentils, beans, chickpeas, that type of thing, provide us excellent sources of protein, a little bit of fiber, things like that.
Okay.
There is some room for meat on your plate, but sticking to 4 ounces, being about the size of the palm of your hand. So a deck of cards is a very good example, both the thickness and the size. A little bit less than what we might be used to eating, right?
So if we try to follow that and maybe keep that sticky on the fridge, but pay attention to it.
Right. The information is available to people, and I think it's less about knowing what to do than it is about how to do it. And that's why meeting with a dietitian can be a really great thing, because it can help you learn, where am I at and where do I want to be, because everybody is so different and everybody has individual health concerns, medical backgrounds, things like that. And that's a great person and a great tool to use to help say, how am I going to remember these rules, I guess, of nutrition, or how am I going to, make this a reality in my family when I have, children or a husband or, other people that I support that I'm, involved with feeding or cooking, preparing food, that type of thing. So, remembering something as simple as this is a lot easier than trying to remember how many ounces or how many grams or things like that, because really it's about progress and not perfection. We want to aim to do a little bit better and transition slowly to a more nutritious lifestyle over time.
So I see this, and is this a make your own salad dressing?
This, you certainly could use it.
What about these?
So the other couple items.
This looks healthy.
So it is definitely has some nutritional benefits. This is a great example. So this right here is just a jar of grapefruit, so any kind of fruit that could be in a jar or in a can. The thing about fruits and vegetables that come in a jar or a can, things like this, they often have added sugar and added salt to keep them preserved. So if you are going to choose things like that are in a can and you want the longevity for the shelf life, look for ones that don't have added salt or that have reduced salt. Also look for ones that are canned in water as opposed to fruit juice.
Oh, I see.
Easy way to get the same flavor without some of those added extras that we're trying to avoid. Also choosing frozen or choosing fresh. Those are excellent ways just to keep those kind of wonderful smells and things in the house that we tend to eat, because the reality is food costs money. And if we know it's going to go bad, we can sometimes be more adept to saying, I got to get this apple done because it's only got a few more days. And we choose it as a snack more likely.
So your role then as a dietitian can help people to transition from less healthy eating to more healthy eating then?
Absolutely.
And how would people go about getting in contact with you?
For sure. So there's a couple of ways if you're looking to see a dietitian. Myself, I am a private practice dietitian, and I run a company called Whitney Nutrition. There's also a plethora of dietitians available for people, and all you have to do is really go to a Google search for the College of Dietitians of Manitoba, and they have a private practice listing of dietitians that are available for consultation, and they have a whole list of people with their websites, their phone numbers, things like that, because the reality is dietitians are getting more busy, and so we have to often share our work with our colleagues. And so if you're really eager to meet with someone and they're not available for a couple of months, I'm certain that they would find someone to refer you to. So we're pretty accessible. It's just for people to learn how to get a hold of us.
So before we sum up, because we have to make sure that we cover as many bases as we can in the time that we have. So I see butter here, and it's on the wrong side. I want it over here. So tell me what I'm supposed to do about
So what this is really representing is fat that is solid at room temperature. Butter is one example. And, it's funny that you mentioned, healthy versus unhealthy. And I really like to use the words nutritious versus non-nutritious. And the reason for that is because a healthy lifestyle and a healthy relationship with food sometimes involves eating non-nutritious food. We want to have a balance. We hear those words balance, moderation so often, and they don't necessarily have meaning unless we understand that we can enjoy all foods. Whoops.
Oh, I see.
All foods fit, including this one who's trying to jump over to the other side.
Yeah.
You bet. So butter is a great example because it is something that adds a ton of flavor. It's wonderful for baking and is something that we can choose sometimes. But as our first choice of something that promotes health would be like a liquid oil. So this would be something that you could fill up with something like canola oil or olive oil, even some grapeseed oil. Things that are liquid at room temperature tend to have those heart healthy benefits that we're looking for. So that's sort of the example there, for sure.
So my plum sauce then that I like to add to salads, not a lot, just a wee bit. What do you think about that as an alternative to even an oil for salad?
Plum sauce is, certainly has a lot of flavor. It, depending what type of plum sauce it is, especially if it's one you make yourself, that can be a great thing because usually those have an oil as a base and then some, sugar and some sweeteners and other flavors that make it so delicious. And really the rule of thumb to follow for something like that is the amount that you're adding. Whether you're making your salad dressing yourself, whether it's a creamy dressing or an oil-based dressing, as long as you're, adding an amount, in the range of 1 to 2 tablespoons, you're going to control your serving size and really not have a negative impact in any way on your health.
So I certainly have learned a lot from you, and I will continue to try my best to try to move towards better choices, and maybe I can hang on to a little bit of a treat now and then.
Absolutely.
Of the ones that I love. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming in. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.